Meaning whatever I plant, that's the sowing, I'm going to reap something from it. That's the harvesting. And so we're saying some people, we shouldn't just say we are foolish when we say, I'm gonna plant a little bitty thing, but then expect a great big harvest. And I know that's partly shaped in our generation because Google's free and Facebook is free. And so we just kind of get this entitlement of like, everything should be free, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, God says, no, this is the pattern I've put into the earth. You sow and then you reap. And if you sow a little, you're gonna reap a little. And if you sow a lot, you're going to reap a lot. And he says to Solomon, if you sow stupidity, you're gonna reap destruction. That's just what's gonna happen, Solomon. So listen, if you know someone with, just an incredible business, well, dear heart, it's because they sowed into that business for a long time. Like it was hard work. If you know somebody with a great marriage, the reason it's great is because they worked on it again and again, and they were humble, and they apologized, and they did all kinds of things that other couples don't want to do, but they did. If you know someone that's got great relationships with their kids, it's because they work at it. It's because they prioritize it, and they don't do other things so that this thing can thrive. If you know somebody who has great grades, most of the time it's because they're working really hard. Dude, it's just sowing and reaping. Man, if you know somebody that is close to God, dude, they didn't just win the Jesus lottery. Like they invested in their relationship with him and then they were close. That's how that whole thing works, sowing and reaping. But the fool says, nah, don't worry about me. I'll find another way. I don't need to go by the principle that God says is operative in the world. I'll just find my other way around it. Thank you. This literally happens, okay? So I don't want you to be offended. In case you think I'm talking about you, I'm not. I'm talking about a general thing that happens so often in my life that I can just give you one example and it will apply to multiple people. So sometimes people will come over to my house and my wife and I, we'll talk about marriage stuff to them. Okay, like a couple will come and they're having problems. They're like, Carter, we're having these problems. What should we do? And we'll give them a little bit of feedback. And, we'll meet once or twice. And then usually after about 2 times, the guy will look up and look me in the face and be like, cool, are we done? And I'm like, bro, I'm sure you understand maybe some concepts a little bit deeper, but here's the problem. You sowed foolishness into your marriage for 5, 10, 15 years, meaning you're treating each other like junk. You weren't respecting one another. You weren't honoring one another. You're speaking death to one another. You weren't prioritizing the things that should be prioritized. You had a ton of conflict for 5, 10, 15 years. It doesn't go away with 2 because it's not even about what you know, it's about what you do. So why don't you go home now for the next 5 years and practice the things we just talked about? Because my friends, that's what wisdom is. Wisdom doesn't know it, wisdom does it. Solomon knew it. Solomon knew what to do. He just didn't do it. That was the whole doggone problem. So whatever we do, we've got to count on the fact that I've got to actually put the seeds in the ground. That's the only way the harvest is going to happen. Foolish folks, when we're foolish, guys, we just don't want to do it. We don't want to get the job done. We're so wimpy. We're so just like just little kids, little toddlers. Ecclesiastes 10:15, the toil of a fool so wearies him that he does not even know how to go to a city. This is funny if you didn't know. That's supposed to be funny. That means as soon as you ask the fool to do something, it's so wearying to them that they're just like, oh, but I don't want to, that's so hard, oh. You ever seen a kid do that? Well, the Lord says that's what a lot of you do. Sometimes it's not just a little kid. Sometimes it's a big kid. Everything is so hard, oh, I just can't get it done. Just get it done, man. Just get it done, just do it. 10:18, through indolence, the rafters sag, and through slackness, the house leaks. Can we just have a revival of do the thing? All right? Like go home and make the call and write the email and have that conversation and do whatever you've got to do. And sometimes like the Lord is even prompting us. How many are ready for level 2 application? So if you're not a new Christian, you're not a non-Christian, you've been doing this for a while, let me give you some stuff here, okay? That means sometimes the Spirit of God, Spirit of Jesus is prompting us in our hearts. He's bringing things to mind. And it's not like there's a ghost that appears in front of you, but it's popping up in your brain. Stuff like, hey, you should sign up for one of those summer suppers. You should go down to Care and Prayer after this whole thing is done. You should have that conversation. You should go home and fix that thing you've been saying you were gonna fix. You should need to get on this thing and make it happen. When the Spirit of God is prompting us, do it. Like that's sowing, you know what I'm saying? He's not gonna keep prompting us. You're like, why don't I hear God? Some of you second level people, why don't I hear God anymore? Well, how much of the stuff that he already told you have you done? Because I just find that he starts to get real quiet when I don't do the things he already said I was supposed to do. Well, fools just count on something magically happening. And it just doesn't normally work like that. Okay, so I'm gonna meddle for a second. Can I meddle? Meddle, that's like preacher code for I'm gonna get in your business in an uncomfortable way, okay? So some of you, and I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, you've been hurt. Like you've had your heart broken from people, and so you never ask anybody out on a date. You never ask, you wanna go hang out, you just wanna have some fun, you wanna go somewhere. You just don't do that anymore. Even if the Spirit of God were to start to bring to mind, hey, I know you've been hurt, but there's a lot of people out there. I know you've had your heart broken by 4 people, but can I just encourage you, there's 3.5 billion other candidates out there. Dude, maybe just take a mulligan and just keep sowing. Just keep going, you know what I'm saying? And I know it's scary, but hey, that would be sowing to the Spirit. That would be obeying a prompting of God if that's what he's telling you to do. And you say, Carter, that's easy for you to say, you got a hot wife. That's true, I do have a hot wife. And God gives me other ways that I need to obey the promptings of the Spirit. But are you obeying the promptings? Because that's wisdom. What is wisdom today? Not what do I know, what's wisdom today? Fools pretend that they won't reap what they sow. And that's where we need to be careful, my friends, because we forget this. You know this, but then it's not gonna be many days and you're gonna forget that this is important, that we need God's wisdom to see through the fog every day. Let's do one more. Foolish people think prominence is proof of success. Foolish people think prominence, if you have a lot of likes, if you're the leader person, if you're kind of like YouTube famous, got any YouTube famous people here? If you're kind of all that at work, if you're like the sales lead, if you're the person that everybody kind of looks to as like, yeah, they're significant. The writer says, be careful, prominent people, because just because the world applauds you does not actually mean you're successful in heaven's eyes. It doesn't mean you're doing much right at all necessarily. Listen to what he says. He says, here's a piece of bad business I've seen on earth, an error that can be blamed on whoever's in charge. Immaturity is given a place of prominence, while maturity is made to take a back seat. I've seen unproven upstarts riding in style, while experienced veterans are put out to pasture. Hey, listen, if you feel put out to pasture, that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with your success in God's eyes. And if you feel really prominent, neither does that. Right? So let's just own that, man. Let's just own that there's a danger with prominence. The danger is if you're kind of always in charge, you kind of landed someplace that was really important, you can trick yourself into thinking, I'm right. I'm just right. Isn't that what Solomon thought? I'm just right, dude, I'm Solomon. What am I gonna do wrong? I'm the wisest dude on earth. I'm just right. And when we're the leader, or when we're influential, or we're the one with all the stars, we be like, hey, look, I'm kind of used to being right. I'm probably right in this case, probably more right than some of the rest. There's a danger there, because in your rightness, you're gonna be far less inclined to say, but what if I only used to be right? What if I haven't visited my God lately to find out if I'm still walking in wisdom, still doing the things that he wants me to do? So dear, precious, prominent people, there's a danger when we think we're all that, because we might not be all that at all.